Hello and welcome to how to create a Monster Whack game using GameSalad's PC version. I will be following very closely to the tutorial that Mr. Stevenson of the Bavarian School in Germany created on the same topic for those who are using the Macintosh version. If you are using a Mac version of GameSalad, I highly recommend you following this tutorial. However, if you are using the PC version of GameSalad, it can create a lot of confusion because unfortunately the GameSalad version is pretty different than the Mac version. So I thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and create a tutorial using the PC version. I wanted to show you first of all what we are going for. Let me click on over here and this is actually the website of one of my students, and in my class I teach 3D modeling and animation and introduction to digital media art at Santa Ana College in California. They learn a number of things. One is how to create art assets for 2D and 3D games. So we use GameSalad to create a little game, and this is an example of the game that David created. So this is the kind of game that you will be learning how to make. So we've got a little animation in here, and when you hit the play button, you have a nice sound. Then now there is a background sound, but I turn it off as it kind of gets a little annoying. Now when you click on the monsters, they disappear, but you notice that they randomly reappear. A point is added every time you hit a monster, and the clock keeps ticking away. So you have a nice timer. So this is a fantastic tutorial on learning the real basics of game mechanics, how to kind of create it in GameSalad with no programming experience required. So thank you, David, for providing a nice little sample for us to look at. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using actually a trial version of GameSalad. I happen to be using, for your information, I'll show you what version, the 0.1340 version. I went ahead and purchased the software just yesterday, but I haven't installed it. I'm going to be using this version just to actually demonstrate that you can create complete games using the trial version, but in order to launch your game, you will have to go ahead and purchase it. The price is reasonable, and there are 50% discounts available to students and teachers, so you probably want to look into that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a game for, so we'll go to File, New, and we're going to create a game for the iPad, horizontal. iPad landscape, not to be confused with iPhone. This is called the menu up here in this gray area, and these are the tabs. And we've got a scenes tab, we've got a layers tab, actors tab, images, behaviors, and then we've got tables, which is more an advanced feature we won't even touch on in this class. I'm going to go over to the scenes, and we're going to create 3 scenes. One is going to be the start page. The next scene, let's say we'll click on the plus here to create 2 more scenes. Next one will be the game. And finally, it will be game over. I'm now going to bring the graphics, images, and the audio files into my GameSalad game. You are going to want to download the graphics that are found on Mr. Stevenson's link that I provided below to use for this tutorial. That is, if you have not received them from me in class. If you receive them from me, there'll be a combination of graphics from Mr. Stevenson's tutorial as well as graphics that were created by myself and or my students in previous classes. As a teacher of 3D modeling and animation and graphic arts, my focus is on how to create art for games. That would be 3D and 2D games. So my students go through lessons in learning how to create the art for it. And I will actually provide links to information on how to do that underneath this video. So let's go ahead and begin. We'll go ahead and go to the media, and we'll click on Add Images. And you just navigate to where you have saved the folder. What's kind of cool is that no matter where they are, even if they're in a number of different locations, they will all be redirected into your project folder. So in other words, they will duplicate them and they will put them all nice and neat into a folder, the project folder that for this particular project. Let me go back to assets, and there's also a sound. You don't see anything because I have to change this to all media. Okay, now I've got this. Now these sounds as well are mostly from Mr. Stevenson's tutorial, but there's actually one I actually got from freesounds.com, and that's like an intro sound that I wanted. So you can certainly do that. There's the formats that they have are you can use WAV as well as other formats, which you can learn more about by looking at the manual. All right, so now our graphics are in, and the first thing we want to do is we want to create we want to set up the images for our first our start scene. So we first have to go to the scene because the graphics this is the stage then for the start scene, and then the next there's like 3 different scenes. So we'll start with the start, and that's kind of like the splash page. Okay, let me go to the media here, and I'm going to drag down to where the image what we want to use for the splash page, and here it is. I'm going to go ahead and drag that onto the stage. And now I am scaling this up to fit the size, and that's really a big no-no when you're creating final games, because when you scale your graphics up, you're losing resolution. So don't do that. Make sure that your graphics are the proper size for the platform that you are aiming for. And if you plan on like creating a game for like multi-platforms, then start with a bigger platform, and because you can always scale your graphics down, but you can't scale them up without losing quality. But for this tutorial, it doesn't really matter. Okay, now once I've put it on the stage, if I go to the actor and I click on it, then, and sorry, you might have to actually click on the backstage toggle so you can see that. And then you'll see this thing, it'll be Actor 1 Prototype Instance. If you click on the Actor 1 Prototype, let me go to I am in the Actor tab, and I'm going to open that up. And you see that there's this generic Actor 1. So any graphic that you add onto the stage will be converted into what we call an actor. And that's so that like programming and behaviors can be put into it. I'm going to rename this background 1. So what I want to do is I'm going to make an animation. First of all, let me just kind of show you how this works. When I hit the play button, then there is the graphic for the first scene. Voila, hee, that's how my game's going to look. I'm also noticing that I didn't actually scale it to fill the scene, so let me just fill the whole page. I'm going to just fill that out. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to make it animate. So I'm going to create a behavior. Okay, so I'm going to click right here, and there's actually shortcuts to getting all the behaviors, but while you're learning, it's better to go to the tab, and so that you can actually drag down and look to see what you might want. And in the manual, it has descriptions of all of these, and obviously you're going to have to learn about all of these so that you can know what you can do and what you can't do. All right, I'll drag it over here, and it gives us this field here where I can actually add a graphic. So I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to add the title 2 right there, and then I'll actually add the title 1, and I'll just leave everything else as default. Now I want to play this, but the GameSalad is very likely to crash when you hit the play button especially. So it's really important to save, and actually we haven't saved yet, and that's pretty important to do. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit Save As, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say Monster Whack. And I try not to put any spaces, leave any spaces in the names, and most of the time, for most things, I have it all also lowercase. So let me just get in the habit. Some things it doesn't matter, a lot of things it does. So it's good practice to just get in the habit of making sure that you have all lowercase when you're dealing with things that might have, especially have to do with the coding inside games. And to use an underscore when you want a space, not a dash, and don't use a space. All right, so there we go. and I can direct it to where I want. So I've got actually created a folder called Whack a Monster Project. I'm actually going to put it outside of there into just a basic folder, GameSalad handouts. I'm going to just stick it right there. All right, so what it's done here is I'm going to go in here, and it's created a folder called Monster Whack, just like I named it, and inside it has all these subfolders, and inside you've got your images, you know, and you've got your sound. So it copies them over from their original location. The original location that I had was in here. Okay, so they're all still here, but then now they're copied into a new location. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's continue. So I saved the file, and now let's go ahead and hit play. Voila! It animates. Very good. All right, let's continue. Okay, now we're going to continue by adding more graphics, but I can't just drag the graphic onto the stage or it will replace the one that's there. When you grab a graphic and you drag it right into the stage on top of the sort of envelope one that's already there, it will replace it. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Actors tab, and we're going to create some new actors like this. Okay, so I just created a few. The first one is going to be called the monster image, I guess. And again, I want to get in the habit of just making everything small, lowercase. And then I'm going to have another one called the play button. Alright, so I've got my monster image selected. I'm going to click on the Actor tab right down here, and then I can go over the media, and I can find, there it is, the Whack button right there, and I'll drag it right in. Okay, go back to the Actors, and I'm going to select the play button, and I'll go over to the media, and I'll find the play button, and I'll drag that over there. Very good. That should do it for now. So go ahead and grab the monster image onto the stage. I'm going to center it right there. I'm going to also grab the play button, bring that over. Now what we want to have happen is we want to have it so that when someone hits the play button, they will start the game. So I'm going to go to the backstage, click on the play button graphic, go over to the tab here where it says play button prototype, and we are going to add a rule. Now let me just differentiate. When we had created some sort of behavior or action on the background, it wasn't a trigger. It wasn't a player activated action. It just always did it. It always animated. So there was no need to wrap it, what we call, in a rule. It was just, we just dragged the behavior there and it just happened no matter what. But now what we want is we want something to only happen when the player does something. So for that we need to add a rule. Okay, so all things where players have to do something to make it happen are wrapped in a rule. Okay, so I've got the rule here, and then in this blank field right here, that prompts me to add the behavior. So what's going to happen? So the rule is when the button is touched. So I'm going to type in, now a shortcut is you can Control T, and you can actually get a list of the behaviors that would fit in there, and they'll kind of come up as a shortcut. But when you're new, you're not going to necessarily know what to choose, so you can go down here and sort of you know, determine what would be the best one to use, or you can refer to your manual. Okay, and certainly it's quicker to use the shortcut, but for this I'm going to say, well, it's called touch. Now I can't even find it. There it is. Okay, when the player button is touched, then something's going to happen. What's going to happen is that we're going to change scenes. So I'm going to hit C, and then it's going to call up all of the behaviors that start with C, and I can choose from the one that I think I need. And I know we need change scene, and it's going to, by default, it changes to the next scene. So I'm going to go back to our Scenes tab, and you can look that there are 3 scenes. So in their order of the start, the game, and the game over. So when it says next scene, then that means that it's going to go to whatever's down the line. So since we are creating this on the start scene,